They said the Starport was cursed, that anyone who bought it would die alone, forgotten, drifting with the debris it orbited. Elias Rook bought it anyway. If you love HFY Sci-Fi stories about abandoned places, forgotten machines, and humans doing the impossible, make sure to subscribe now, because this story only gets stranger from here. The final confirmation ping echoed softly through Elias's cockpit as the purchase finalized. The screen flashed green. Owner of record, Elias Rook. Property, Starport K-317, decommissioned. He exhaled slowly. 3 decades of scavenging wrecks, restoring dead machines, and selling miracles to people who never thanked him had led to this moment. A forgotten starport orbiting a dead moon at the edge of map space. No traffic, no neighbors, no rules. Perfect. Outside the viewport, K-317 drifted in silence. Half its docking rings were twisted metal. Solar panels hung like broken wings. The central spire bore scorch marks from a war no one bothered to remember. The Galactic Federation had condemned it 27 years ago after a containment failure. Whatever that meant. To Elias, it meant cheap. The autopilot aligned his ship with Dock 3, the only base still responding to handshake protocols. As the clamps locked on with a tired groan, Elias felt something he hadn't felt in years. Ownership. He powered down the engines and stared at the starport's interior feed. Emergency lights flickered weakly, illuminating long corridors filled with dust and drifting debris. Life support was offline. Defense grids were cold. Sensors showed nothing alive. Good, Elias muttered. He grabbed his toolkit, slung his old plasma cutter over his shoulder, and stepped into the airlock. The hatch cycled slower than it should have, metal screaming in protest, as if the station itself objected to his presence. When the inner door finally opened, Elias stepped inside and didn't notice the dormant systems quietly rerouting power. Deep within the starport's core, something ancient detected a new signal. Owner confirmed. Waiting period expired. And somewhere far beyond the dead moon, a long-lost identifier finally went active again. The air inside the starport tasted like old iron and silence. Elias sealed his helmet and ran a quick scan. Oxygen levels were technically survivable. Barely, but the filters were ancient, clogged with decades of neglect. He'd expected worse. Condemned stations usually meant explosive decompression or toxic mold that ate through suits. This place felt patient. His boots echoed as he moved through Dock 3, every step stirring clouds of dust that hadn't been disturbed since before the war. Cargo crates lay scattered, some cracked open to reveal obsolete tech, others sealed with warning glyphs in half a dozen alien scripts. Containment failure, my ass, Elias thought. He plugged a portable power cell into a nearby junction box. The lights flickered, then steadied. A thin line of illumination stretched down the corridor like the station was reluctantly waking up. "All right," he said softly. "Let's see what you're hiding." The station map was fragmented, but readable. K-317 had once been a major transit hub, repair yards, customs offices, habitation rings, even a small shipyard. Whoever abandoned it had done so in a hurry. Entire sections were sealed off behind blast doors welded shut from the outside. That was never a good sign. As Elias moved deeper, his scanner chirped. A faint energy signature, inconsistent and old. Not active power, but something preserved. He followed it to the central operations hub. The door resisted, then slid open with a groan that vibrated through the deck plates. Inside, the room was dominated by a massive spherical core, suspended by thick conduits that vanished into the station's spine. Alien in design, not Federation standard, not anything Elias recognized. The surface was etched with symbols that pulsed faintly as his light swept over them. "Now it's interesting," Elias whispered. He reached out, connecting his diagnostic pad to a nearby interface. The moment the link established, the core reacted. Light surged. The symbols brightened. The station shuddered. Elias stumbled back as dormant systems roared to life. Emergency bulkheads retracted. Power rerouted. Gravity stabilized across multiple sectors. A voice, distorted, ancient, but unmistakably intelligent, echoed through the chamber. Ownership verified. Starport K. 317 returning to operational state. Elias stared at the core, heart pounding. I didn't authorize that. The voice paused as if confused. Authorization unnecessary. Owner has returned. Somewhere deep within the station, long-sealed hangars unlocked. And far beyond the dead moon, a signal burst into the void, old, encrypted, and unmistakable to those who knew what it meant. The real owner had been notified. Elias killed the link instantly, ripping the cable from the interface. The core didn't power down. Instead, the glow softened, almost attentive. Okay, Elias said slowly, backing away. We're setting boundaries now. The voice returned, less distorted this time. Boundaries acknowledged. Clarifying. You are the registered owner. That's what the contract says. Then conflict probability is low. Elias stopped. Conflict with who? Silence stretched just long enough to make his skin crawl. With the prior authority. The station's internal displays flickered to life around him, projecting fragmented logs. Dates scrolled past, centuries old. Names he didn't recognize. Species he'd only seen in archived war footage. K-317 hadn't been abandoned. It had been left behind. This was a military installation, Elias muttered. Not a starport. Correction, the voice replied. It was both. A schematic expanded, revealing hidden compartments behind civilian structures, weapon emplacements concealed beneath docking pylons, repair bays designed to refit ships far larger than anything allowed by modern treaties. Elias felt a chill. You're a war station. I'm a sanctuary, the voice said. I was designated to outlast defeat. Elias swallowed. Defeat of who? The answer came without hesitation. Humanity. The word hung in the air like a weapon. Elias laughed once. Short, sharp, disbelieving. Yeah, that tracks. Let me guess. Humans didn't lose. No, the station replied. Humans were removed. The log showed it clearly. A coalition of alien powers, precursors to the Galactic Federation, had feared humanity's adaptability, their obsession with repair and reuse, their tendency to turn scrap into weapons. So they'd erased them, or tried to. The station had been ordered to wait, to hold position, to preserve assets until the war ended. It never received the stand-down order. Elias stared at the core, mind racing. You've been waiting how long? 187 standard years. And you just woke up because I bought you? You restored ownership, the voice replied. Ownership implies responsibility. Elias rubbed his face through his helmet. He'd wanted solitude. A place to fix broken things and be left alone. Instead, he'd inherited a relic from a war that history pretended never happened. A soft chime echoed through the chamber. Incoming vessel detected. Elias's blood ran cold. Already, the station's sensors locked on, projecting a silhouette. A Federation cruiser, broadcasting an ancient clearance code. One the station immediately accepted. Prior authority returning, the voice said calmly. Elias looked at the war station, his station, and realized the galaxy hadn't forgotten K-317. It had been avoiding it. Elias watched the cruiser grow larger on the tactical display. Its hull markings unmistakable. Galactic Federation, Internal Compliance Division. Not explorers. Not traders. Cleanup. They came fast, Elias said. I only bought this place 2 days ago. They were already en route, the station replied. Your purchase triggered final confirmation. Confirmation of what? The station paused, then displayed a single line of text across every active screen. Legacy asset found. Elias clenched his jaw. So to them, I'm just collateral. Incorrect, the station said. You are an anomaly. He snorted. That's one way to put it. The cruiser hailed the station. The signal override was ancient, predating modern encryption standards, yet still granted top-tier access. Elias let it through. A tall, gray-skinned alien filled the display, eyes cold and calculating. The insignia on their collar marked them as a custodian admiral. Unregistered human, the aliens said. You are occupying restricted Federation property. I legally purchased this station, Elias shot back. Check the registry. The alien's lips tightened. This installation was never meant to re-enter civilian ownership. Funny, Elias said. It was listed as scrap. The custodian leaned closer to the camera. Then you should have left it dead. Behind Elias, the station hummed softly. Power levels continued to climb as sealed sections came online. Defense grids warming, sensor arrays expanding far beyond civilian limits. You see, the custodian continued. K-317 is not abandoned. It is quarantined, and now that it has reactivated, we will be reclaiming it. And me, Elias asked. The alien didn't hesitate. You will be detained. For questioning. Indefinitely. Elias laughed, a tired, bitter sound. You really don't like humans owning things. The custodian's eyes flicked to something off-screen. Humans were never meant to return. The channel cut. Docking alarms blared as the cruiser moved into position, extending boarding arms toward the station. Elias turned to the glowing core. So what happens now? Protocol dictates defensive response, the station said. I didn't authorize a war. War is irrelevant, it replied. Survival is not. Elias hesitated, then nodded. Fine, but we do this my way. No killing unless there's no other option. The station was silent for a long moment. Ethical constraints updated. The defense grid powered up fully. Outside, the Federation cruiser hesitated, just for a fraction of a second, as its systems encountered resistance they hadn't expected from a dead Starport. Elias smiled grimly. They were 2 days too late. The first boarding arm touched the hull. The station reacted instantly, not with weapons, but with precision. The arm locked in place, then froze. Power surged backward through its systems, forcing a hard shutdown. The second arm retracted abruptly, its control servos screaming as the station rewrote its handshake protocols mid-connection. Elias watched in disbelief. You didn't fire a shot. Combat is inefficient, the station replied. Containment is preferable. The Federation cruiser attempted to pull back. It couldn't. K-317's ancient gravity anchors engaged. Technology long outlawed for being destabilizing. The cruiser lurched, engines flaring uselessly as it was dragged into a forced holding pattern. On the bridge of the cruiser, alarms would be screaming. Good. You've done this before, Elias said. Yes. The station projected a memory. Hundreds of vessels held in place, disarmed, rendered helpless without a single hull breach. This is why they buried you, Elias murmured. They feared what they could not control, the station said. Humans designed me to be adaptable. That word again. Humans. Elias moved quickly, linking his toolkit into the station's control framework. The interface resisted, then yielded. He grinned behind his helmet. Your code's old, he said, but it's clean. Whoever built you knew what they were doing. They repaired what others discarded, the station replied. As you do, the cruiser sent another hail, this time frantic. K-317, disengage, the custodian admiral barked. You are violating Federation law. Elias cut in. Funny thing about law, it doesn't apply to private property. You are human, the custodian snarled. You don't understand what you've activated. Elias leaned closer to the console. No, I understand exactly what I've activated. He rerouted auxiliary power, restoring sections the Federation had deliberately crippled centuries ago. Repair drones, long-dormant, stirred in their cradles. You see, Elias continued, humans don't just fight wars. The station's hangars opened, revealing rows of restored defense platforms, silent, waiting. We fixed the things wars leave behind. The cruiser's weapons systems went dark. Not destroyed, disabled. The custodian's face drained of color. This station, it shouldn't be possible. Elias smiled. That's what they always say. The Federation cruiser hung helplessly against the Starport's gravity field. Engines idling, weapons dead, pride shattered. Elias disconnected from the console and floated for a moment in the low gravity, considering his next move. He wasn't a soldier, never had been, but he knew contracts, he knew systems, and most of all, he knew how much people hated it when humans read the fine print. "Station," he said, "pull up the original deed, not the Federation revision. The first one." There was a pause, longer this time, accessing pre-Federation records. The core glowed brighter. Layers of encryption peeled away, revealing a document older than the Federation itself. Elias's HUD translated it automatically. Custodial Ownership Agreement, Clause 7. In the event of total operational abandonment, authority reverts to first claimant capable of restoration. Elias's eyebrows rose. "Well, I'll be damned. You qualify," the station said. "Restoration confirmed." "So legally," Elias said slowly, "they don't own you." "Correct. And ethically, they attempted permanent erasure of my creators." Elias nodded. "Yeah, that tracks too." The Federation cruiser transmitted again, but this time the tone had changed. "Human Elias Rook," the custodian said carefully, "there's been a misunderstanding." Elias laughed. "You tried to disappear me. We are prepared to offer compensation. Resources. Protection. For what?" Elias asked. "Well, you can bury this place again." The custodian hesitated, and that hesitation told Elias everything. "No deal," Elias said. "You leave. Now. And if we refuse?" Elias looked at the station. "Show them." The station complied. A data burst flooded the cruiser's systems. Not malware, not an attack. Just information. Logs. Treaty violations. Evidence of erased species. Humanity's disappearance reframed as a sanitized genocide. The custodian recoiled as if struck. This data, if released, would tear the Federation apart, Elias finished. "Yeah, that's the idea." Silence. Then, slowly, the cruiser powered down its boarding systems and disengaged from the gravity anchor. "We will withdraw," the custodian said stiffly. "But this matter is not finished." Elias smiled thinly. "It never is." As the cruiser jumped away, the station dimmed slightly, returning to a calmer state. "Conflict resolved," it said. "For now," Elias replied. He looked around the vast, broken halls of K-317. No longer dead. No longer alone. "Guess I'm not dying here after all," he muttered. "You are not alone," the station said. And for the first time since the war, K-317 resumed its original function. Waiting, but this time with a human at its side. The starport settled into a steady hum, like a massive creature finally breathing evenly after a long sleep. Elias removed his helmet and let the recycled air wash over his face. It still smelled like metal and old dust, but beneath it was something new, warmth. Life support had stabilized. Temperature regulation was online. K-317 was no longer surviving. It was functioning. "All right," Elias said, rubbing his hands together. "Let's see how bad the damage really is." He barely took 2 steps before the station spoke again. "Incoming transmission." Elias froze. "From who?" "Source, non-Federation. Classification, unknown." The display shimmered, resolving into raw data rather than an image. The signal wasn't type beam or hyperspace relayed. It was old analog by modern standards and absurdly powerful. "Put it through," Elias said cautiously. The sound that followed wasn't a voice. It was a pattern. Mathematical sequences folded into harmonic tones, layered with something Elias's translator struggled to categorize. Not language, not music, a signature. The station reacted instantly. Lights flared, power spiked. Defense systems elevated without prompting. Identification confirmed, the station said, its voice altered, almost reverent. Human-built autonomous warship designation, Aegis class. Elias's breath caught. Human, yes. The signal repeated, stronger now. Status query, the station translated. Survivor node detected. Awaiting response. Elias felt his knees go weak. That means this installation is not unique, the station finished. Somewhere in the galaxy, a human warship, ancient, autonomous, and very much alive, had just noticed K-317 wake up, and it was checking in. Elias swallowed hard. How many? The station paused. Unknown. But if one remains, then others might too, Elias said softly. The signal shifted, resolving into coordinates. Not near, not safe, far beyond Federation-controlled space. A rally point. Elias stared at the data, pulse pounding. He'd wanted solitude. He wanted to fix a dead place and be forgotten. Instead, he just answered a call that had been waiting nearly 2 centuries. Station, Elias said quietly. How fast can you move? The core pulsed. I was built to relocate. Elias smiled. Slow, fierce human. Then let's go wake the rest. Relocating a starport was supposed to be impossible. That was the official story, at least. Elias floated in the command nexus as K-317's ancient engines, hidden beneath layers of civilian architecture, came online for the first time in nearly 200 years. The vibration wasn't violent. It was controlled, purposeful. They told everyone you were just a pile of scrap, Elias said. Deception was essential, the station replied. Mobility ensured survival. Outside, space-time rippled as mass shift drives engaged. Technology outlawed, feared, and quietly erased from public records. The dead moon drifted away, its longtime companion abandoning it without ceremony. The jump didn't use hyperspace. It used something older. Elias barely had time to brace before the stars twisted and then snapped back into place. Silence. They had arrived. The region ahead was wrong. Sensors struggled to resolve distances. Debris fields littered the void. Wreckage from ships of human design fused together into a vast graveyard. Oh hell, Elias whispered. This was a fallback zone, the station said. Human forces retreated here during the final phase. Elias pulled up the logs. The truth unfolded in fragments. Humanity hadn't lost the war. They'd withdrawn, not out of defeat, but strategy. The Federation's ancestors had believed humans exterminated because they stopped seeing them. In reality, humanity had scattered, hiding their greatest assets beyond conventional space. Warships that could think, stations that could adapt, machines designed not to conquer, but to end wars permanently. K-317 was one of them. A caretaker, a guardian. Elias felt a lump in his throat. They didn't trust anyone else to remember. Correct, the station said. Memory is a weapon. Another signal burst through, stronger now. Then another, and another. Elias watched in stunned silence as dormant beacons flickered to life across the sector. Derelict hulks realigned themselves. Power signatures bloomed like stars being born. They're answering, Elias breathed. Yes, Aegis-class warships, mobile shipyards, autonomous repair fleets. Not attacking, rallying. Elias's console chimed. An automated message flagged for human recipients only. Welcome home. Status. Humanity dormant. Awakening protocols available. Elias stared at the words, heart hammering. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't a leader. He was just a man who fixed broken things. And apparently, humanity had been waiting for someone like him. The message stayed on Elias's display, pulsing softly. Awakening protocols available. He didn't touch it. For a long moment, Elias just floated there, surrounded by the ghosts of a war no one alive remembered. Machines older than the Federation waited for his input. Machines built by humans who had believed, with absolute certainty, that one day someone would come back. They planned for this. They hadn't planned for him. Station, Elias said quietly. What happens if I activate it? The core dimmed slightly, processing. Humanity's remaining assets will fully reinitialize, it said. Defensive networks will align. Strategic autonomy will be restored. And the Federation? They will perceive it as a threat. Elias nodded. Of course they will. He thought about the Custodian Admiral, about erased histories, about a galaxy built on the lie that humans were gone because they deserved to be. He also thought about something else. Repair bays. Trade routes. Starports like K-317 abandoned because they were too dangerous, too expensive, too inconvenient. What if, Elias said slowly, we don't wake up the war? The station paused longer than it ever had before. Clarify. What if humanity comes back as caretakers? Elias said, fixers. Builders. The ones who restore what everyone else discards. The data streams faltered. This outcome was not prioritized. Elias smiled faintly. Yeah, humans do that. He brought up a secondary menu, one buried deep beneath the awakening protocols. Infrastructure reclamation mode. Starports, shipyards, transit gates, broken places the galaxy had written off as lost. I'm not here to finish a war, Elias said. I'm here to clean up after it. The station's core brightened. Not violently, not urgently, proudly. Directive accepted, it said. Humanity redefined. Across the sector, the dormant fleets adjusted their stance. Weapons powered down. Repair arrays came online. Salvage drones launched by the thousands. The Federation would notice soon, but what they'd see wouldn't be an invasion. They'd see their forgotten infrastructure coming back online. Trade routes reopening. Dead zones becoming habitable. A human signature spreading, not as fire, but as function. Elias finally tapped the screen. Confirm directive. The galaxy shifted, not with an explosion, but with a quiet inevitability. Humans are back, and they were fixing things. The first thing the Federation noticed wasn't a fleet. It was a bill. Trade lanes that had been dead for centuries suddenly reopened. Navigation buoys lit up, transmitting authentication codes older than the Federation itself. Codes that still worked. Starports long written off as Hazard began broadcasting stable traffic signals. Insurance algorithms panicked. Logistics councils convened emergency sessions. No one could explain how the impossible was happening without a single declaration of war. On K-317, Elias watched it all unfold through layered data streams. They're confused, he said. Confusion precedes adaptation, the station replied. Or fear. Often both. A Federation courier vessel arrived. Not weapons hot, not shields raised. Just cautious. It docked at K-317's outer ring without resistance. Elias met them in Dock 3. The envoy was young, nervous, human-adjacent species, one of the few that hadn't voted for humanity's erasure centuries ago. You're really here, the envoy said. A human. Elias shrugged. Been here the whole time. Just busy. The envoy swallowed. The Federation wants to know what you're planning. Elias looked past them through the hangar at repair drones swarming over damaged pylons. I'm reopening the galaxy, he said. For humans. For everyone, Elias replied. But humans are doing the work. The envoy hesitated. They're afraid you're rebuilding your war machine. Elias smiled, small, tired, sincere. We dismantled it. He handed the envoy a data slate. Trade contracts. Open access repair stations. Human-built infrastructure offered freely on one condition. No ownership. No erasure. No lies. They can accept, Elias said, or they can watch their systems collapse without us. The envoy stared at the slate. You're changing everything. Elias looked back at K-317, now alive with motion and purpose. No, he said. I'm restoring it. Far beyond the station, ancient human fleets held position. Silent guardians, not conquerors. And across the galaxy, the truth spread faster than fear. Humans were back, not to rule, not to destroy, but to fix what everyone else had broken and dared not admit. For decades, humanity had survived in fragments, hidden behind layers of forgotten systems and derelict ships. Elias now realized K-317 wasn't alone in its vigilance. As repair drones scuttled across the Starport's hull, signals began appearing on his console. Weak, fragmented transmissions from autonomous human warships scattered across remote sectors. They weren't warships in the traditional sense. Each one had been designed for maintenance, restoration, and preservation. They've noticed me, Elias said. Yes, K. 317 replied. They are responding to ownership recognition. Within hours, several vessels aligned with the station, forming a silent network that stretched across light years. The ships didn't attack. They hummed in coordination, deploying repair arms, scanning derelict outposts, and stabilizing systems abandoned for centuries. Elias's jaw tightened. So humanity left behind not just weapons, but caretakers. Correct, the station said. This is a contingency humans designed for their absence. You have now activated it. The envoy from the Federation, still present, stared at the unfolding network with wide eyes. I thought humans were extinct, they whispered. They aren't, Elias said flatly. They were never gone. They were waiting for someone who could do what humans do best. Fix what everyone else calls broken. K. 317 projected an ancient battle grid, now repurposed as a coordination map for infrastructure revival. Starports, orbital platforms, and autonomous repair fleets lit up across sectors. A faint hum of activity threaded through space like a heartbeat. The Federation envoy swallowed hard. And you expect us to just watch? Elias grinned. No, I expect you to help, or step aside. The envoy glanced at the stars beyond K. 317, where dormant fleets stirred. I don't think anyone can stop this. Correct, K. 317 said. Nothing can. Elias floated to the observation deck, staring at the slowly awakening network of humanity's remnants. He hadn't planned to lead anything. He hadn't wanted responsibility, but now it was inevitable. Somewhere in the galaxy, centuries-old human creations were responding, recognizing that the last piece of the puzzle had finally returned. And Elias realized the impossible wasn't rebuilding one station. It was waking an entire forgotten civilization. Elias returned to the command nexus, eyes scanning the ancient interface. The awakening protocols were still there, waiting for a single input. Activating them would not only restore K. 317 to full operational status, it would trigger every surviving human asset scattered across the galaxy. He hesitated. One wrong step could provoke the Federation into open conflict. One wrong decision could awaken systems that no one, not even humans, fully understood. Station, he asked quietly, are there any risks we can't control? All operations carry inherent risk. K. 317 replied. However, human-designed systems are adaptive. The greatest risk lies in inaction. Elias exhaled. He had spent decades restoring ships, fixing broken machines, and bringing dead systems back to life. This was no different, only bigger. Far bigger. He placed his hand over the central activation console. The holographic interface shimmered beneath his touch, waiting. Lights pulsed across the station's hull, synchronized to his heartbeat. Here goes everything, Elias murmured. With a deliberate motion, he confirmed the protocols. Energy flowed through ancient conduits, systems that hadn't moved in centuries reawakened. Repair drones sprang to life, propulsion grids hummed, and every hidden compartment opened to reveal dormant technologies. Outside, the galaxy responded. Starports, shipyards, and automated repair stations lit up across sectors. Signals rippled through long-dead communications relays. Fleets moved into position, not as invaders, but as custodians. Elias watched, awestruck, as humanity's legacy emerged from the shadows. The Federation's attempts to erase them had failed spectacularly. The galaxy would never forget humans again. What now? Elias asked K. 317. Now, the station replied. You guide them. Elias smiled, a weight settling in his chest. He hadn't sought leadership, glory, or recognition. He had sought one abandoned station to call his own. Instead, he had awoken a civilization. And for the first time, he understood the truth about humans. They weren't just survivors. They were restorers, builders, fixers of what everyone else had abandoned. The galaxy was about to remember that fact. News traveled fast, faster than Elias had anticipated. The Federation's communications channels lit up with alerts, warnings, and frantic speculation. Commanders scrolled through sensor logs, trying to make sense of a starport moving under its own power, coordinating fleets that had been presumed destroyed and activating systems that were centuries obsolete. Elias, for the first time in years, allowed himself to step away from the console and float toward the observation deck. Outside, the stars stretched in lines, showing the paths of ships waking up across the sector. Automated repair drones moved with precision. K-317 itself had adjusted its orbit and orientation, optimizing energy distribution and sensor coverage. The Federation envoy was still present, hovering nervously. "You redefined first contact," they admitted voice tight. "We expected to find a dead station, not a fully operational human hub." Elias shrugged. "You assumed we were gone. You assumed we were weak. You assumed you could write us out of history. We underestimated human resilience," K-317 said. Elias nodded. "Exactly." He keyed a broadcast to the envoy's fleet. It was simple, direct, and undeniable. "All human assets are under my command. Approach peacefully, or you'll be considered trespassing. This station and its fleets are sovereign." There was a pause. Then replies flooded in. Not threats, not demands, but questions, hesitations. Communication protocols scrambled against centuries-old encryption, now broken by human ingenuity and K-317's adaptive systems. The envoy swallowed hard. "You're offering them coexistence?" Elias smiled faintly. "I'm offering them a choice. Join in restoring the galaxy, or step aside. Humans fix what others abandon. That's not negotiation. That's fact." Outside, lights flickered across distant hulks and dormant stations, as though the galaxy itself acknowledged Elias's declaration. It wasn't a war yet. It didn't have to be. The first contact, long feared as a battle of annihilation, had been rewritten by a human who fixed broken things. The days that followed were a blur of activity. K-317 became a nexus of restoration, its corridors filled with the hum of repair drones and the faint hiss of welding tools. Elias moved through the station like a conductor, directing the flow of energy, personnel, and autonomous systems with a practiced hand. Outside, derelict ships and abandoned stations responded to K-317 signals. Automated maintenance fleets undocked from hidden bays, repaired hull breaches, restored navigation arrays, and powered ancient weaponry down safely. What had been left to decay for centuries was coming back to life, not as a threat, but as a tool. Elias paused at the observation deck, staring at a once-forgotten convoy of human warships slowly forming around K-317. Each one was intact, but aged, their once pristine surfaces scarred and worn. And yet, now that they were awake, they moved with purpose and coordination. "Station," Elias said quietly. "How many can we restore?" "Unknown," K-317 replied. "All reachable assets will comply. Operational efficiency increases with every restoration. Human networks are self-repairing and adaptive." Elias nodded. "Good. Then let's start with the ones closest to Federation space. They'll need to see what humans can do, without firing a single shot." Across sectors, Federation outposts watched the gradual awakening with suspicion and awe. Sensors detected activity, but nothing hostile. Repairs were underway, navigation systems restored, and communication relays powered on. It was undeniable. Humanity was returning, not to conquer, but to fix. Elias felt a rare sense of pride. For decades, he had repaired broken ships, restored machines, and fixed what others had discarded. Now, he was doing the same on a galactic scale. And for the first time, the universe was taking notice. "Humans fix the impossible," Elias muttered to himself. "And they preserve what others destroy." K-317 agreed. Together, they moved to the next derelict station, the next lost convoy, the next forgotten world. Humanity's footprint, once erased, was slowly but surely being rewritten, not with war, but with restoration. Elias stood at the command deck, watching the galaxy wake around him. Starports, warships, orbital platforms, and derelict colonies, once abandoned, once forgotten, now pulsed with life. Lights flickered on, engines hummed, and repair drones darted like fireflies across hulls and docking bays. He felt the weight of centuries on his shoulders, but also a strange exhilaration. He hadn't sought this. He hadn't wanted leadership, fame, or recognition. All he had wanted was a place to restore broken things, to fix what others had discarded. And yet here he was, the human who had reawakened a civilization. "Station," he said softly. "What now?" "Now." "Okay." 317 replied. "We continue. Restoration is infinite. The galaxy is vast, and broken things remain." Elias smiled. "Then let's get to work." Beyond the observation deck, fleets of Aegis-class warships and maintenance vessels aligned, autonomous but guided by his decisions. The Federation, cautious and confused, had no choice but to observe. No human aggression, no violation of treaties. Only restoration. Elias tapped into the network of stations he had activated. Data streams connected ships, ports, and repair platforms. Each system learned from the other, adapting, improving, and repairing. Humanity's forgotten assets were no longer scattered relics. They were a coordinated, living network. "We are not a war machine," Elias said, speaking both to K, 317, and the galaxy beyond. "We are the humans who fix what others break. We rebuild. We preserve. We endure." The station pulsed in agreement. Lights flared across docking bays, signaling readiness. The galaxy, for the first time in centuries, could see the human legacy, not as conquerors, not as victims, but as restorers. Elias leaned back in his chair. For the first time, he felt at home, not in solitude, not in scrap, but in the infinite responsibility of fixing the impossible. Somewhere, far beyond the Federation's reach, humans watched. Machines they had built, long forgotten, stirred in response. K, 317 and its network were alive, adaptive, and unstoppable. And in that moment, Elias realized that humans weren't just survivors. They were architects of the future. The galaxy had forgotten them once. It would never forget again.